I was just laughing. I don't want people to misinterpret that, but I remember you wrote in the book, we didn't have anything in common. I asked myself, do I want to see him naked? I thought that.
Well,
Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. Today, I am so happy to welcome a new content expert to Second Act, award-winning author, international speaker, and advocate for ageless sexuality, Joan Price. Joan, thank you so much for being here today.
oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for introducing me to your audience and the wonderful work you do.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm excited to have you here. Joan, of course, is the author of 5 different books, including Naked at Our Age, Speaking Out Loud About Senior Sex. I have it sitting right here. That's actually how I found you. And then the topic for today's segment, Sex After Grief, Navigating Your Sexuality After Losing Your Beloved. A big topic, of course, for our demographic. It's been a big topic for a Second Act for our viewers. And of course, a big topic in your life, your
Yes.
personal, experience with this. And I'd like to get started there, Joan. Let's give our viewers some context as to how you came to write this book and why this is so important.
Sure. I'd had marriages, I'd had relationships, I'd had short-term, long-term, committed, casual. I met the love of my life when I was 57 and he was 64. And it was such a life-changing relationship that I changed my career as well as everything about my personal life. Because I had been a high school English teacher for 22 years. Then I was a health and fitness writer for I'm not even sure how many years. Once I met Robert and we were having such extraordinary sex and such a deep relationship.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, such growth involved in a later
Mhm.
life relationship that just everything changed. I didn't want to think about anything else or write about anything else. So I started writing about senior sex, and that's when I wrote at age 61. I wrote, mere youth of 61, it seems to be now. I'm 80 now. I wrote Better Than I Ever Expected,
Mhm.
straight talk about sex after 60, which I thought would be a standalone book, but
Mhm.
it was the beginning of a new career. And so
Yeah.
for 19 years, that's been my
Wow.
career. I lost Robert to cancer
Mm,
7 years after our first kiss.
mm,
First kiss, last kiss,
mm.
same date. And I did not know how I would, I don't know if recover is even the right word. You
Mhm.
don't recover from grief,
Right.
you learn to live with it. And it wasn't until 2019, he died in 2008,
Mhm.
wasn't until 2019 that I was ready to write the book that I knew it was my mission to
Mhm.
write, which is Sex After Grief. And it's not
Mhm.
just about sex, it's
Mhm.
about how do you come back to relationships, dating, opening yourself
Mhm.
sexually and emotionally
Right.
to a new person when the person you want to have sex with
Mhm.
is dead.
It's
How
dead.
do you do that? And I tried all sorts of different things. I tried going to bed with an old lover, taking a new one, having an erotic massage. Oh, that I will vote for that every time. I tried dating the dating sites
Mhm.
that ended up working. Everything I tried that didn't work got me closer to knowing what might work.
My word. Mhm.
And I felt as I wrote the book that put me in a position to share what this journey can be. And so I did that. Sex After Grief is a story of my personal grief journey, but
Mhm.
it's also the story of other grievers' journeys because I knew, I mean, one of the main things I came to is that there's no one right way to come back to sex or relationships or even just getting a little closer to any of that. There's no one right way.
Right.
There's no one timeline. We all find a our way that fits with who we are, who we want to become. Thank you for reading it so carefully, because you sent me your notes and I'm so impressed. And I'm taking much longer to answer your question than you even wanted.
No, 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 no. It's all good. You actually bring me to the one of the key questions that I do want to ask. Everything is different, as you said. Everybody has a different journey, etc. But I think what stands in the way for everybody is just the whole emotional process and the our beliefs about, can we move on after this? Should we have sex again? The myths that others tell us, as you say in your book. And I really would like to touch on that, because I know especially people who are dealing with this now can relate to this. Let's talk about some of the biggest myths.
Yeah, I have a whole chapter on that, as you know. There are the myths that other people tell us, and the myths that we tell ourselves. And for example, one of the myths we tell ourselves is it would be a betrayal of our beloved if we open to someone else. I want to say here, and I don't know that I even said it as strongly enough in the book, because I wanted, I've learned so much even since that book came out. One of the things I want to implore you to do, if you are lucky enough to have your partner now, is to sit down with your partner and say, if at any point, if either I die before you, or at any point I am incapable of being in a full relationship with you, that I want you to know that I want you to find joy. Please know that I love you enough to give you the gift of knowing that I want you to give the love you have to give, to receive the love you need to get, and not to feel guilty. You're not betraying me. You are instead taking the love we shared and making it even bigger by sharing it with someone else.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think you mentioned that Robert told you that, which made it easier. Yeah. And even though he did, though, you said it was just unbearable, and it took you years and years and years to do so.
It was still unbearable.
Yeah.
And one of the other myths that we tell we tell ourselves, I couldn't possibly love this deeply again, so I'm done. This is years later. I am in a relationship. I am in a relationship with another widower.
Yeah, this is such a huge topic, especially on this channel, and the whole idea of going out and dating again, to where it really is different for a widow and widower. You've mentioned, your journey. Should I only date a widow or widower? Is that where you go first?
I would advise going there first if you are in a big city. Where there are likely to be a lot of widowers and widows. I mean, I found when I even put in my dating profile that I was seeking a widower. And I did get some widowers. And I had first dates with a bunch of widowers. And the only thing we had in common was that we were widowed.
Yeah.
And so that just isn't, I mean, the first date was good because we could share that. But I came to, about halfway through, is there anything else that we're interested in together?
I was just laughing, and I don't want people to misinterpret that. But I remember you wrote in the book, the only thing, we didn't have anything in common. I asked myself, do I want to see him naked? I thought that, I was giggling in my head, not about the topic.
No, that's important to bring in, is that if you're considering someone as a potential sex partner. So it's hard. I would say, yes, first put out there that you're widowed. You can say, I am vulnerable dating because I'm recently widowed, or because although I've been widowed a long time, I haven't been dating. I haven't tried to put myself out there. So I need to tell you I'm vulnerable. That does not mean you spend the whole coffee date speaking about your deceased spouse. You do not. You put that out there, and then you find out what you and that person have in common. You answer those questions. I've heard dating coaches say, don't talk about your deceased partner, don't talk about your ex,
Mhm.
etc.
Mhm.
I'm really not in favor of that.
You brought up such great points that for somebody like me who is, as you call people who haven't experienced this, non-grievers, I think that's a great word. What we really need to know, because when I first started dating, I've been in a long-term relationship now 12 years, but when I first started dating, I did date a widower, and maybe, yeah, and that did come up exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying. Can you handle hearing about the deceased, the beloved?
Yeah.
In my case, I don't think I did. I mean, I wasn't
Uh,
greatly attracted, but I can actually, that's something that really needs some clarification so you don't run each other off. And you do that beautifully in this book, is that you talk about, don't think this is a competition.
yes, you're not in competition with a person
Mm-hmm.
you want to date, dated
Mm-hmm.
before, or was in love with before, or
Mm-hmm.
lived with for 55 years before. You're not
Mm-hmm.
in competition. Who is that person now? What
Mm-hmm.
does that person bring to a relationship with you? And if this person is in grief, by the way, one mistake I don't want you to make dating a griever is to say, as someone said to me, you're not ready to date yet. Who are you telling me?
Yeah,
Oh
you need
my
to
God.
come
He
up
was not
yourself.
ready to date me.
Me.
That was what I came away with. If you are the griever, you're not only very vulnerable, but you also have to be very strong,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to put up with inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
comments, or you're going to put, let's say you get into a relationship with someone and the person says, okay, I want you to take your wedding picture out of the
Mm-hmm.
bedroom. It's time to put
Mm-hmm.
that away. My wonderful Robert was an
Mm-hmm.
artist,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have in my house 44 paintings of his on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone said to me, when are you going to put away those paintings? I'd say, bye bye.
Yeah. And you felt yourself that you can't, grief and new love can be side by side, because I
I
think
discovered that.
that's so difficult for non-grievers, if you will, to understand. I mean, I bring a lot of insecurity to any new relationship anyway, so I
Oh,
want
we
to be
all do.
up front with that. But it is hard to understand
Yeah.
that it's okay. It's okay.
We are vulnerable no matter what new
Mm-hmm.
relationship we're starting, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what we're bringing to it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And part of, if we are the griever and someone is trying to date us who is not a griever, you've got to also, this may seem to contradict what I just said, but I don't feel it does. You need also to be sensitive to what
Mm-hmm.
that person is afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will never be first in
Mm-hmm.
her heart. Well, maybe you
Yeah.
won't,
Mm-hmm.
but there's room in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
first and a
Special,
half.
to be special.
Special.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have some great, like tips for dating someone here who has lost a partner, and obviously we'll link to your book. And I would encourage anybody to pick it up that is remotely interested or going through this right now, because it is filled just with brilliance, Joan.
Oh,
That
thank
yeah, that you
you.
don't find elsewhere.
There was never a deep exploration of how our timelines are all different. And I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes there was just the old don't date until a year is over.
Yeah.
What's that about? Why
Mm-hmm.
a year? A year
Mm-hmm.
for me, a year for you are totally different
Yeah.
things.
Right.
And there have
Right.
been grievers who met their next love
Mm-hmm.
just weeks or months after
Mm-hmm.
they lost their beloved.
Mm-hmm.
Often they were in a caretaking
Mm-hmm.
situation. So
Mm-hmm.
they mourned the loss of their relationship
Yeah.
long before the person actually died.
You just brought up another really important point, and that is the judgment that goes with,
Judgment. Oh,
how quickly you move on, or how long you wait. being, again, on the outside of this, and we're talking, and I'd love to hear from our audience. We get a lot of comments on these segments. I'm looking forward to the ones for today. Are you going
Me
through this?
too.
Do you agree? Do you disagree? What questions do you have? I think even preparing yourself to go to a grief counselor, and I'm not trying to sell your book. Yeah, please pick it up. But I think reading this prepares you even to go, just what
Yes.
to ask, what's going to hit you, stuff that you're
Yes.
never even going to think about. And it's also going to give you permission to do and say things that you might never do or say. And Joan, we're coming up on to the end of this segment. There's so much more to talk about. What haven't I asked you? What do you want to leave our audience with that's so important when we talk about this?
Do not judge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel that you're doing it, you're dating too soon, or you're waiting too long, or you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from the things that don't work as much as learning from the things that do work. I found that if I tried to journal about the good memories, and then I kept switching to the things that were horrible memories, like about his dying and how awful I felt. I made two journals. One was the memory journal. It was only the good stuff. When I had a happy memory, I put it in there. The other was the grief journal. And this was everything else. This was the tears. This was the trying to take baby steps or giant steps, having them fail, having them succeed, notes from the grief counseling, dreams. I had dreams sometimes that were very good or very bad. And that helped me a great deal. As for the rest, please read Sex After Grief and buy it for your grief counselor if you have one and they don't know about it.
Yes, absolutely. Joan, thank you so much. Again, there's a million other questions I want to ask you, and I do want to hold you over for another segment on this very, very important topic. I'll link to all of your information, to your website, to your books, and I look so forward to talking with you again soon on Second Act TV.
Thank you. My pleasure.